Click play and call it work.
Hey there, Wargamers. Welcome to another episode of Sit and Talk. I think today is the 17th. Or is it the 16th? Let me check for you guys. It's the 17th. Wednesday, January 17th, 2018. You've got Luka from MiniWarGaming today answering questions you have asked me from last week from Josh and Lee Sit and Talk. And now next week, it's going to be Quirk from MiniWarGaming. So if you're going to want to ask them questions, please leave them on the bottom of this video, all of your comments. On YouTube, they're going to be disabled, so you'll be directed over here to leave those comments. And don't put them on the vault component on this one either, because Quirk will be reading strictly from this. Without further ado, let's jump into the questions. First one's from Dan123 at Luka. Being one of the newest content producers at MiniWarGaming, was there any hazing or initiation process you had to go through? Probably like any new job, you pretty much take on the bulk of the work to really, throw yourself in there to get yourself as used to the job as possible. So it was rough at first. No, there was no hazing or initiation. I'll answer that part, so no, none of that. There's just, recording. I'm still recording a bunch. You probably see me in most of the videos, actually, if I think about it, other than various narrative campaigns where it's kind of split out evenly between everyone. I am in a lot of the 40K, 30K, fantasy, and Age of Sigmar games. So I guess, yeah, you do get a pretty big bulk of me right now just because, still learning the job. I mean, everyone's always still learning, no matter what they're doing. Other than that, though, no initiation, no hazing, no nastiness of any sorts. Next one, Jelthuzad, I like the name. Luka, how do I feel about crime? How do I feel about crime? I guess crime is bad. Crime is pretty bad. It's a bad thing. That's why it's crime, I suppose, right? I don't know. How do I truly feel about crime? There's different types of crime, right? There's harmless crimes, and there's harmful crimes. Harmful crimes are bad. Harmless crimes are also bad. Don't do crime. Don't do crime. That's a warning from Luka from MiniWarGaming. Don't do crime. We got Catfish 666. Okay. Luka, love the content you put out. Keep it up. What would my 2018 hobby goals be? Please let me finish my Necrons and my Death Guard. Please. I've got this renewed vigor. So all my Necrons are on 25mm bases, and they're painted by an 11-year-old plus, which is me. A lot of them are. I got those old Immortals. Not the first rendition of Immortals, but the pewter ones after that, when they pretty much just had the Gauze Flare from the Necron Warrior just flipped on top of itself. So there's flare on the bottom, flare on top of the two tubey things. And it's just got the double end glued on. You know what? It was a cool model at the time, but the new Immortal's way better. I've got 20 of the old Immortals and 10 of the new ones, all with Gauze Flares, because I think the old kit only came with the Gauze Flare. The old pewter one, if I recall. Could be wrong. I can't really remember. Anyways, I would like 10 more Immortals or 20 more Immortals. 10 more with just 10 more. Just 10 more Immortals with Tesla. And I want to just kind of shelf the old metal ones. I don't really use them anymore. I've recolored their bases and rebased them, but I got to pop them off and put them on 32mm anyways, and I don't feel like putting pewter on 32mm. Well, I mean, I'd have to pin them. Probably. They're not going to stick because they have that slit that goes in the fitted base. The old 25mm. So I'm probably just going to shelf those, get new Immortals. I already have 10 new ones, but I still have to pop those 10 new ones off their 25s and put them on 32s and rebase the entire thing and repaint them in a proper scheme that I would like. So that's a goal for Necrons. For my Death Guard, I got a brand new Death Guard army over Christmas. I think I got it at 750 to 1,000 points. I quickly, I had a bunch of store credit at Black Knight Games, and I did a couple tournaments, and I got my credit up, and I just kind of unloaded all my credit and some old Magic cards I don't use anymore to get that up to about a 2,000 point armor. So I'm at 2,000 points of Death Guard, only primed and based. So I got to work on that. There's a lot of work to be done. I already know the scheme I want to do. I have Typhus. I painted him up first to kind of get an idea of what I want everyone to look like. I probably should have started with a random Death Guard Plague Marine, but I went with Typhus because I was excited to paint the new model. I'm really happy how his Destroyer Hive came out, and just his over. I'm going with the old Death Guard scheme of white with the green shoulders, and the old worn out trim on everything. So that's what you guys will be seeing. Hopefully you guys like that. I know I do. It's actually very similar to the Mortarian that Lee painted up, because that's the original scheme. Those are my goals for 2018, though, definitely. Oh, second part. Also, how often do you hang out with Lee and jam some Slayer and a Bolt Thrower? Well, ideally it'd be once a week, but I record so much up here that I mostly see Lee up here. When I was first hired on, I did a lot of working down there with him and Cullen at the time, because Cullen was on a summer vacay. So I was down there all the time with him. There was a lot at first. Now it's kind of down to once every 2 weeks, I'd say I go down there. I'll be rebasing some models, just painting up some of the old fantasy stuff, maybe converting some old, not used fantasy stuff to Age of Sigmar, or just helping him with whatever he's working on. Like last time I went down there, I had a goal in mind, and then he distracted me with ideas on how to work on my new Necrons. So that's another thing I have to do for my Necrons, is Lee gave me an idea how to cut them all up and re-stance them so they look not all the same, and some are imposing and gives some dynamics to my units, so they're not all in the same position. Some are standing, some are in like a walking position, you know, stuff like that. You guys will see. I swear you guys will see at some point in the future. I hope they look cool. I've done it to a few and I'm impressed. So, but no, I don't get to hang out with Lee as much as I would like to. You do usually get a lot of work done on there, because up here you get really distracted easily. People come in with conversations. Matt always has new ideas, and those ideas are usually a pretty big hook, so it gets everyone's attention. Everyone starts sitting down discussing these ideas. So if you're downstairs with Lee, you tend to get work done. Sometimes Lee is distracting too. Shame on you, Lee. Or it's I'm the one who's distracting him, because he's so easily distracted. But he gets a lot of work done at the same time. It all really depends on the day. Next one. We got Captain Snickdaka. Luka, the bringer of law, the ender of crime time, the bane of spiders. I read this one. The rightful owner of the Boots of Speed, the BDB. You had me in tears while watching Steve's Baldur's Gate video. I had myself in tears, and Steve was also in tears. That was very fun, and I was actually disappointed. Steve eventually gave me the Boots of Speed, and I at that point realized that barbarians already have a speed boost buff built in. Yeah, it's built into the character, but it's like an active buff it's like a hidden active buff they have all the time. So the Boots of Speed don't stack with that; they kind of counteract each other, and I just keep the barbarian speed boost. So the Boots of Speed were quite literally useless on a barbarian. And I gave them back to Steve, and he got to run around and have fun, and not me. But I enjoyed the fight to get them. I've noticed you've become less nervous on camera while filming since you started MiniWarGaming. Do you have any tips on how to get more comfortable filming battle reports? Just grind them out. Just don't stop doing it, just until it's like almost second nature. I'm sure anyone else here would agree with me on that one. There's no formula. There's no pattern. None of that. I mean, I'm sure there's still a lot I can do to get better at it, but I don't know how many I've recorded. I'm trying to think. Probably over 100 I've recorded. Maybe near 100. Around that number. I'm just trying to like do the math in my head. Been here for 8 months. Say I record four times a week. It's like 16 videos a month. 8 months. Sometimes I record 2. I don't know. There's a bunch. I drifted out, but yeah, probably around 100. And after so many, I guess you just kind of get used to it. You don't hold the camera so close or so far. You get better vision on the dice. Without looking now, I know where all the dice are landing. So I know at first I had a lot of trouble. Like the dice, I'd be recording too close, and the dice would kind of explode off camera, and you would maybe only catch 2/3 of all the dice that were shown, and that would be frustrating. You want to see what everyone rolled. But I'm sorry, I don't really have any tips. Just grind. Just don't stop doing it. That's all I can really suggest. Unless there's like a course you could take for it. That would probably help. I don't know if there is, though, for filming battle reports. Next question. We got Osama's Ghost. Luka, how open would you be for a war of secession between some Necron dynasties? Even if you don't think it would make good content, would you just be down for fun? Happy wargaming. Necron on Necron combat. You know, there was a time in 7th edition that came up at a tournament, and I just conceded before the game even started. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not really. I think at the time I was also maybe grumpy. If someone came in and if you came in and you're like, I want to play Luka and I want to play his Necrons with my Necrons, I would say yes, of course. I guess I'd be in a pleasant mood just because of the silly nature of it. I'm not a huge fan of mirror matches, not in Magic, not in video games, or on the tabletop. But I wouldn't say no to you. I would at least try it. There was times where I fought Death Guard as Necrons, and it felt like, well, in 8th edition, it's just a grind, right? It's just such a brutal grind. It takes so long to record, and in the end, not a whole lot is accomplished, because when you think about it, you have to kill 20 warriors in a squad to take it out completely, and that's, I mean, ideally, you'd want 40 warriors, if you guys had enough warriors each, you could have like your 2 squads of warriors, try and take out one of the opponent's squads of warriors. Whoever goes first could maybe pull it off. It might not happen until you're in rapid fire range, and Immortals wouldn't have the power to do it. There's just not enough shooting power in a squad of Immortals to kill a squad of warriors. Immortals are better for like taking out Space Marines or Terminators, stuff like that, right? I don't know, it'd be a grind fest, and there's not enough powerful weapons to really, I guess, the vehicles, I'm thinking, wounding them on 5s, then they'll have a 5-up save. With enough rapid fire, you can probably take out the vehicles pretty easy enough. The quantum shielding will have no effect against Gauss weaponry. Other than the heavier stuff, like the heavy Gauss cannon. It's like a las cannon. I'd be open to it, a war of secession between the dynasties. Curious to see what the future books hold, see what the other dynasties have and bear. But you know what? Like off topic, outside of the question, I'll end up playing Celtic. That's what my Necrons are painted up as, or at least they will be proper when I get them all done. I'd do it. I'd fight that. No problem. Next up, we've got Mr. Cthulhu. I remember you, Mr. Cthulhu. We played Fantasy together. I believe, if I recall, don't hate me if I got this wrong, Taylor. Bam, it's Taylor. Because I thought it was Tyler before, and then you're like, no, it's Taylor. I'm like, okay, that's fair. I'm terrible with names, but I remember Taylor. And of course, I remember the scenario. Who would win, 8 Minotaur boys in a tower or 1 magic boy on a dragon? The answer is clearly the Minotaurs. In fact, not even 8, it was just 1. Or I think it was 2 at the time. But it was the work of 1. It was the hero Minotaur, I'm pretty sure, who had a shield, and he was parrying everything. I can't remember, Bull, was it? It wasn't the Lord variant, it was the hero variant of the Minotaur. Essentially, the story is, guys, if you're familiar with Warhammer Fantasy Battles, we were playing the Watchtower scenario, and I had Malekith assaulting the tower with Seraphim, his black dragon, and he simply had a Minotaur with a non-magic shield, which allowed him to parry attacks, which gives you a 6-up invulnerable save against Malekith, the Witch King, the leader of all the Dark Elves, all his attacks, and the dragons, and boy did he just parry everything and win the game because of it. What a great game of fantasy. what a great game of fantasy. Oh, but in all honesty, would your fantasy guys be interested in facing off against a very large army, 10,000 points of dwarves? If I had a couple days to record that game, I would do it. Like an apocalypse game, 10,000 dwarves versus 10,000 of literally anything that I would do. Oh man, like, how much war machines do you have though? Like, that sounds like the worst. Can you imagine having like 10 cannons? You have like 1 cannon per 1,000 points. I could bring literally no monsters. I don't have enough monsters to survive that many cannons. I think you'd win. I don't know. I'm thinking like organ guns, cannons, grudge throwers, just a whole lot of dwarf parking lot. I don't know. Would people want to watch that, Taylor? Do you think they'd want to watch that? 10,000 points of dwarf parking lot? I wouldn't want to do that. How do you think you'd handle playing and filming a game of fantasy that size? I'd have to probably consult Matt because he's kind of toying with apocalypse games right now, and he would give me some ideas. It'd be a lot of different camera angles for movement, and it would have to show like sections of the table move one after another. So like just like film 1/3 of the move 1/3 of the table, show the movement, move the second third, show the movement, move the last third, show the movement probably. The psychic phase wouldn't be so bad. You could easily show that as the normal psychic phase. The movement would take forever. The combat would be obscene. The combat would take forever, but I'd probably show all that maybe, unless it was too much. I would love to, okay, ideally is what I'm saying is I would love to do an apocalypse fantasy game or a grand army apocalypse game, which is like 3,000 points or more. Different limitations on what you can bring. And there's not, I guess there's Forge World models that really do eat up a lot of points. You don't really see them at all on fantasy though. People usually stick to the just the the books, the army books, so you don't really have anything big and over 1,000 points in an army book. Like you obviously bring like Nagash and like all the big end times named characters and stuff like that. It would help eat up the points. Nagash in a 10,000 point game could easily summon like an extra 2,000 to 3,000 points of undead. Maybe more, I don't even know. Depends on how well you roll. I would do that, and that's how I would try and handle it. Just kind of partition out the movement phase and film everything else normally, perhaps. Because the shooting phase could be huge, especially if you're playing Dwarf Parking Lot. Anyways, enough about Warhammer Fantasy Battles. You're teasing me, making me think. I just recorded a couple games with Josh yesterday. And all those are actually really good games. So those will be coming out probably this Saturday. Yes. No. Yes, this Saturday. Next one, we've got Sticky Blue Toffee. Luka. It was great seeing some of the open war Age of Sigmar games alongside the match play scenarios. Are there any of the narrative scenarios from the various battle tomes and campaign books that appeal and would ever see any gamed? Will we see any games with these? You know, honestly, I've been so busy with 40K and fantasy that Age of Sigmar, when it comes up, it's just like, at the moment, none of the Age of Sigmar stuff really screams at me. The Nurgle or the Magikin book was pretty cool. I liked the way it played. We don't have any of the models for it, though. We don't have the trees. We don't have any of the new... Well, I guess the new kits for the Puscoil Blight Kings aren't out yet, but we only have 10 Blight Kings on square bases, so I need to put those over to circular bases. And our Nurgle army is... It's all right, but we're missing more great unclean ones. We only have 50 Plague Bearers. I'd rather have like 60 to 90 Plague Bearers if I was to play Nurgle or Magikin again. Maybe 6 beasts. No, we got enough. Other than that, yeah, if I were to add to our Nurgle Magikin or the Magikin book, I'd need like 60, so 40-ish, 10 to 40 more Plague Bearers and a lot more Blight King stuff to really thoroughly enjoy that, especially with the trees. Definitely need the trees, like 6+ trees. We don't have any trees. That's why I didn't use them in my games, because I don't like to proxy. So I think the only game I like to proxy in is Warhammer Fantasy Battles, because that one is, I don't know, I feel like it's easier to proxy in that one, or it's easier to remember. Anyways, the trees, they're so impressive looking, and for, I don't know, for 40K Age of Sigmar, I just don't like proxying for whatever reason. I don't know why. I'm not going to probably play a Magikin until the new trees come out. But for the new specific scenarios in the books, I don't know. It all depends on the book. Like for me personally, if like seeing like maybe a future death book comes out, and that would highly interest me. So the scenarios in there would highly interest me. So I would probably force play some of those scenarios with my opponents. That would be very fun. And I would like to go back to the match or the open war cards with the match play rules very shortly. Those do change up the games a little bit. I like the 6 basic scenarios in the General's Handbook. I prefer the ones in the 2017 handbook as to the previous one, just because I feel like they're more interesting overall. I really like Scorched Earth. I like Battle for the Pass. I like all of them. But yeah, you'll definitely see some of the, I guess, I can't remember words. Yes, the campaign-specific scenarios and the narrative scenarios all around. Yes, you'll see some of those. I'll probably play those from the Death Book whenever that comes out in the future. You just have to be really into the book. For me, there's none too many books out there that I'm really into. I haven't actually read any of the story on any of the Age of Sigmar books because they haven't really interested me so far. I like the game, I just haven't really been driven into the story yet, and I need one good book to do that for me. Matthew's in the same boat, right? He wants to really get into the Age of Sigmar story. He wants to jump into it, but he wants a novel that really hooks someone into the story and really explains the story really well. I actually made a Facebook post a couple days ago asking people's opinions on novels for Age of Sigmar. Next question. Sergeant Safety. Luka, tell us 3 things you love and 3 things you hate. As out of everyone, I feel we know the least about you. 3 things I love. Well, that's easy. Mariah, my girlfriend. Love her. Cute, I know, right? Blech. Next one is going to be food. I love food. I really do like food. Food of all sorts. Chocolate, meat, French fries, or potatoes in general, gravy. Favorite food would be a nice prime rib roast with Yorkshire pudding and mashed potatoes with lots of gravy and just a mountain of vegetables. Just a classic good like Sunday dinner, you know. That is my favorite meal. In fact, my mother makes that often, and I always go home for that meal. I guess I never really mentioned my girlfriend too much. I'll go into that a little bit of detail if you want, because that falls in the category. Been together for over 2 years. We met at my old job. She was my boss. What else? What else do I love? What else do I love? A third thing I love. Warhammer? Games? Games. There we go. I love games. So, food, Mariah, and games. I like my friends too. People I work with are pretty cool. But I'll say games. I've been playing them forever. My brother got me into them when I was young, of course. I was like, as far back as I can remember. There's this, oh man. If you guys remember, there's this old PC we used to have. I can't remember what it ran. It was before 95. I can't remember the operating system. And we used to have a game called Flashback. I'm sure some of you know actually got there's a recreation of it, a remastered version of it that went out on Xbox and PC. Flashback goes way back to the 90s. It's just like 2D. Actually, you know what? It'd probably be pretty popular these days because of the 8-bit nature of it and the side-scrolling nature of it. It was a really neat game. I always got the last level, the alien world, because the story was there's a bunch of aliens infiltrating human society, and only you knew about it, but they wiped your memory. So I used to love grinding that game. I'd play it for so much. It didn't really have save files. You'd beat the level and it would give you a code that you could write down and type in to go back to that level to like continue from your save. There were save stations. You could like pull a lever and save your game, and when you died, you just kind of reappear. You'd respawn right there. That was one of my favorite games when I was younger. I'd play that all the time. There's this other game too when you were walking through dungeons all the time. You used to throw fireballs out of your hand. I can't remember what that one was called. And you could like machine gun fireballs out of your hand or like shoot fireballs in a spread. Maybe some of you out there might remember the name of that game. I can't. And then there's always, of course, X-Wing. My brother used to have the joystick for that. Incredibly fun, incredibly addictive. Those are all the games. Those are the first games I remember playing when I was young. You just had the Star Trek game as well. That you would it was on floppy disks to install it, and boy was there a lot. There was like, I want to say 30 plus floppy disks. It was to install this game, you had to put it and be like, install floppy disk 2, bam, install floppy disk 3, install floppy disk 4, and there was about 30. He had this big case full of the Star Trek game, and it was like a Star Trek adventure game. You'd walk around, you would have your crew, you'd land, you would have a mission to do, something to figure out, be space explorers. That game was far too complicated for me, so I did not play it. The other ones I kind of stuck to. Those are 3 things I love. 3 things I hate. Crime. Easy one. It goes along with my character. Hate crime. I hate... I'm such a jolly guy. I just don't hate anything. What do I hate? 2 more things I hate. Hate. Hate's such a strong word. Hate crime. I hate... I'm not the biggest fan of fish. Sometimes I like fish. Sometimes I don't. Okay, I can't say I hate fish. I don't mind fish. Hate. What do I hate? I feel like I should call someone and ask them, what do I hate? Because I can't think of anything. I hate crime. I kind of dislike fish, but I don't hate it. I hate... Oh, man. I'm not a big fan of the Supreme Command Detachment. Would you say I hate it? I guess, there's a lot of people here who aren't a big fan of the Supreme Command Detachment. I guess that's probably not what you're really asking for. Like, what do I hate as a person? Like, what have I grown up hating? What have I grown up with this hate in my belly? I can't think of anything. What if I got back to this question? What if I just kind of keep going and I'll get back to what I hate? Well, there's a second part of this question. There you go. I'll get back to the hating part after I read the second part of this question. I'm really enjoying watching Blue Collar Heresy. This is again from Sergeant Safety. As you've made the series amazing, thank you, and made the rest of the guys up their role-playing skills. You know what? The rest of the guys aren't really used to the RPG thing, so it just took them a session or 2 to really get into it. So maybe I helped a little bit, but they just had to get out of their shell as well because they're used to the tabletop wargaming, but they're not so used to the role because tabletop role gaming, there's like a set rules and there's like a set amount of things you can do, right? There's set rules in a role-playing game, but I shouldn't say set. There's rules to a role-playing game, but they can always be kind of they're loose, right? The GM can always dictate what is and what is not. And the fact that you can literally do anything within the realm of reason in these kind of games kind of makes them, there's not a huge learning curve to a role-playing game, but there is that. The fact that you have to understand the concept that is do whatever, and you either succeed or you do not succeed. You just simply say what you want to do. That was probably the learning curve they had to deal with, and it only took a couple of episodes to get through that one. Also, I've heard a tiny demon walks the halls of MiniWarGaming at night. Can you prove that there isn't? Can I prove that there isn't? No, I cannot. Quirk has just been here all night, though, because he was doing a 24-hour live stream, and he did not mention anything about a tiny demon that walks the halls of MiniWarGaming. So that the amount of proof I have is simply that Quirk hasn't mentioned it. So that's about it. Regarding tiny demons, my character in Blue Collar Heresy was having a moment of paranoia that Josh's character, Lord, was also suffering. I'm not a big fan of that. My character normally wouldn't be a big paranoid guy. He'd kind of be brave under all circumstances, like logically brave, not like unconditionally brave, just logically brave. When something doesn't make logical sense, then yes, he'd be afraid. So at that point, he was a little shook up from previous encounters, and now he's suffering from paranoia. Not anymore. His paranoia has seeped, and it has kind of gone away. So happy I don't have to roleplay that anymore. And for tiny demons, I was never afraid of that tiny demon. I just had to pretend I was afraid of the tiny demon. It wasn't that scary. Josh didn't make it sound scary at all. But there's no tiny demon in MiniWarGaming. And if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, guys, I'm talking about Blue Collar Heresy. There's a moment where a tiny demon comes up. And I guess I'll leave it at that. And when you guys watch the series, you can figure that out. Josh blew it way out of proportion. And by default, my character was affected. And back to the 3 things I hate. The 3 things I hate. So again, crime. What, can I just hate crime? Can I hate 3 different types of crime? 3 different types of crime. Oh, fish sauce. I hate fish sauce. Oh my gosh, I hate fish sauce. Okay, there you go. 2 things I hate. You know what? I'm just gonna go with, how about just nasty liquids? How about Chug-a-Mug? I'm not a big fan of the Chug-a-Mug, but I'll do it anyways because it was really fun, and the video was kind of funny too. The video is not out yet, and I don't know if Steve said anything about it. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't, maybe I spoiled it, but I won't go into any more detail until the video's out. I'm in it. Steve's only in it through narration. Everyone else is in it. Chris is even in it. Chris got so lucky. Anyways, wait till that video's out and you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah. I can't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Sergeant Safety. I can't tell you 3 things I hate. Maybe I'll think of them after the video or in the vault component, but I can't think of anything I hate. I failed you. We got one more. I'll do one more for you guys. Luka. Oh, sorry. Gary I'm terrible with names. Whitley. White, L-E-Y. Gary Whiteley. I'm going to say Whiteley. I think it's Whiteley. As a lover of Warhammer Fantasy Battles, now you have a few games of 6th edition under your belt. I wondered what your thoughts are on the differences between this edition and 8th. I'm curious, as unlike most of us longbeards who remember 6th fondly, then progress through 7th, and then finally to 8th, you have done this in reverse, so perhaps you have a different opinion. All the best and keep up the great work. Now, I actually do like this question a lot because that is very true. Going back through the editions as opposed to going forward, which is a weird concept because I was often saying when we were playing 6th edition, like certain units didn't exist or certain rules just blatantly didn't exist. So I'd say stuff like, oh, I can't believe this doesn't, no. We used to have, I'd say stuff like, oh, I used to have Terrorgeist, I used to have Blood Knights. I'm like, no. They never existed. I will one day have them soon. So playing 6th edition was fun to go back. There's a lot of elements I like. Something can be said for the lack of hordes, no steadfast, and magic being a tool, not a means to win the game, and the smaller rulebook, which isn't as imposing as the 8th edition rulebook was. But there was a lot more which fleshed the game out in the 8th edition rulebook. So going back and forth, I don't know if I'd make enemies saying this. 8th edition is a better edition for rules, making the game more fun overall than 6th edition was. I liked 6th edition a lot, but it was missing some core rules that just didn't exist at the time, like your inability to reform after in combat. You have a unit going up, and then the enemy unit comes in and bam, charges you and hits you in the flank because you got cut out of a position. Now, some might argue that's your punishment for being cut out of a position, and you can't reform. You're hitting the flank. You're just fighting that flank forever. Now, in 8th edition, if you win combat, you're allowed to reform for free and face, and then you can fight normally. Or if you lose combat, you can just do it on your leadership based on whatever you lost by, but you still have that chance to reform and fight normally. In addition, after combat, your only options are either staying still or running forward if you wipe them out completely. If you just win a stagnant combat, you can't reform afterwards. So you have to use a turn. You have to use your next turn to reform, which really slows down the progress of the game and really doesn't. I mean, the game is still a combat game, so it doesn't, like melee combat, so it doesn't take away from melee combat units. It just kind of slows them down a lot. You have to, again, some might argue that you should be smart with when you get into combat so you don't waste that turn after the combat to get into position, which you can just say that you're using the turn before that combat to get into position, which gives your opponent a turn to respond to it. And it's hard enough to get into combat in 6th edition because you have to pay for your wheel when you move, as for your movement allowance, which really slows down your charges and makes charging a heck of a lot harder. I'm just saying the negatives of 6th edition at this point. So the negatives off the top of my head that are in 8th edition that really fleshed out the game and made it better, in my opinion, were the additions to reforming in combat and after combat. Swift reforming kind of simplifies the way that they had turning and all of that jazz. It's all the same in the end. It just sped up the process and took out a few steps. So that already existed in 6th edition. They just fleshed it out better in 8th edition. There's another thing too. There was another thing in 6th edition that was lacking. Oh, paying for that charge. So in 8th edition, you pretty much just measure nearest to nearest, and if you're within the charge range and you make it, you don't have to pay for the wheeling and like anything like that. You just kind of try and maximize as best as you can as you make it. Now in 6th edition, you can't measure when you charge. You just move double your distance when you charge, and then once you declare it, you measure to see if you're in. If you're not, you just fail, and you kind of just fail forward however much you go. But you had to pay for the wheel, which was the most obnoxious part. The only time you can make an easy charge is when it was like straight line, like just going forward, not wheeling or anything like that. Anyways, fantasy is a complicated beast. What else? You know what? I think that might have been the only thing I didn't like about 6th edition was the fact that there's no reforming. The lack of reforming all around. I didn't care about the lack of units, or there wasn't really a lack of units. There just wasn't units that didn't exist at the time. And for me, that did not take away from the game. In fact, I really liked how you built the armies, and I really liked how characters were vastly weaker. Everything, by the way, in 6th edition fantasy, way weaker than 8th edition. Stats were worse, points were higher, equipment was worse, way more limited. Like an example is for a vampire, in 8th edition, you have 100 points you can spend on vampiric upgrades and 100 points you can spend on magic items. So you have, like, those are separate pools. So you have up to 200 points in upgrades on your vampire in 8th edition. Going back to 6th edition, you only have 100 points for vampiric powers and magic items. So you only had 100 points. And that really limited what you could do on a vampire. But of course, the way it worked back then is a vampire is insanely powerful because of his high initiative. And you can make like a blood dragon vampire. And I do miss, so that's a bonus to 6th edition, which I really liked. The two more of my favorite things from 6th edition, which I really miss in 8th edition, but I agree it probably wasn't necessary. No, just the one thing. Killing models from the front rank. That was huge. That changed up everything. So your two units clash in fantasy. Whoever charged got to fight first, like 8th edition, Warhammer 40k at the moment. And that person got to swing first, regardless of whatever weapon they had. Great weapons would give always strike last, but if you charge, you get to swing first still. And for every model you killed, say you're just like fighting 5-on-5, boom, and you're swinging first, you kill 5 models, you kill 5 models from the front, and then people step up, but they don't get to swing back. Only the front rank gets to swing in 6th edition. There's no supporting attacks unless you have spears and you're charged. That was one of my favorite things. That really changed up the whole concept of the game entirely. You could have, it might take away from some of the fun, but I liked it thematically in my head. that it kind of reminds me of the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, when the Alliance of Elves and Men in the Second Age are fighting against the orcs of the orcs of Mordor and Sauron, and the whole orc line charges the elven line. They just do that boom warglaive thing where they just kind of cut up and kill the entire front line of orcs, and it like nullifies all their attacks. They have nothing. Of course, the orcs are charging. They would have attacked first in fantasy, but you know, whatever. You get the idea, right? I love the idea of your super elite line just wiping out each line of enemy as they come up to you. Like, you kill the first line, the second line marches up, can't attack, and then when it comes to combat again, your line's got higher initiative or something, they swing, kill the entire line. March up, kill the entire line. March up, kill the entire line. It really emphasizes the power of elite troops, which I thought was amazing. And again, thematically in my head, I loved it. Absolutely. That was one of my favorite things. And then the second favorite thing was the magic phase. So you always got a set amount of dice, and magic spells are not very powerful. They were useful, very, very good tools, but you would never win the game based on it. At least I don't think, it never came up in my 6th edition games. Not at all. Those were probably my favorite qualities. Oh, and no pre-measuring. No pre-measuring and guessing artillery, or they're called guess weapons. So like cannons, you'd have to guess. You'd have to guess with stone throwers. The trebuchet, if the trebuchet existed, ballista, all of that. Guessing everything was amazing. Now, if I could cannibalize both editions and put them together, I would easily. I'd keep hordes. I'm not too sure if I'd keep Steadfast. You know what? I would keep Steadfast, but I would bring back unit strength and the old 6th edition rules on breaking ranks or disrupting ranks. So you need unit strength. I think it was like 10. You need unit strength. No, I think it was 5. You need unit strength 5 to break ranks, which means a monster could break ranks, one monster could break ranks, and a unit of 5 or more cavalry could break ranks easily. I mean, technically 3 could break ranks, because that's unit strength 6 for cavalry, which might have been too easy. I don't know if that was the thing. I thought it felt more thematic, though, that would suck for a horde, though, if they get charged in the flank by a monster. But they're getting charged in the flank by a monster. They should suffer. It doesn't... My least favorite things about 8th edition, Steadfast, is way too powerful because only 2 ranks of 5 or more models can break ranks. That is brutal, and that does not come up nearly as much as it should unless you only bring small bricks of infantry. Usually in 8th edition you see like 1 horde and like 2 supporting bricks of infantry, or maybe 2 hordes. And then people don't bring monsters because they can't break ranks, and they just get destroyed by cannons or artillery in general. Magic in general just destroys monsters completely. So there's no point in bringing them unless you just want to bring a cool model. Cavalry is brutal because you need 2 ranks of 5, which is insanely expensive because cavalry is very expensive. So you're bringing 10 cavalry models to break ranks. If you lose 1 model, you can no longer break ranks. So that means you have to bring like 15, which makes it a really large footprint and very hard to maneuver because they're the elongated bases. I think they're 240s. Yeah, like they're essentially like a 40 by 80 cavalry base. So it's a really long footprint, and it's hard to maneuver. And if you lose 6 models, then you can't break ranks anymore, and it's not unrealistic to lose 6 models to war machines. So I would bring back unit strength and disrupting ranks, keep Steadfast. I would like to go back to the old magical spells. I like the Winds of Magic generating dice. I don't mind that, whatever, that's fine. I'd keep either or. They're both successful in my mind. And I like that your wizard can only use so many dice on spells. And I like that magic was just a tool, not a way to win. So if I could cannibalize both editions, I would take the best from both, which is reforming a combat and out of combat for 8th edition, keeping the Steadfast, but taking the unit strength and magic of 6th edition and kind of throwing them together. And maybe the way the combat worked in 6th edition, it might not have been better, but I liked it thematically. I thought it was cool, where you can kill the front rank and then the next rank moves up, can't fight, then they die, and then so on and so forth. Anyways, guys, that is it for this YouTube segment of the episode. I'm going to jump into the vault right now to do the sit in vault part of the episode, where I answer questions from the vault members. So if you're not a vault member and you want to check that out, just click on the link below, and it'll send you over to the website where you can sign yourself up for a 7-day free trial if you're interested in hearing me blabber on more about random questions that the viewers ask me. Happy wargaming, everyone.